Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Before we begin, today's Day of Learning has been sponsored by Barry Steinberg to commemorate the yahrzeit of his uncle, Gedalia ben Chaim George Steinberg, which is, his yahrzeit is today. The Neshama should have an aliyah.
Amen.
Okay, we're learning Mishnah Yisika, Perek Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Tes, Mishnah 9. Now, this Mishnah is going back or continuing from a Mishnah we learned a while ago, where the Mishnah discussed that the height of a lulav, the height of a lulav is 3 tefachim, kedei l'naneh bay, which was explained as plus another tefach in order to be able to wave the lulav. So now, based on that, the Mishnah says, v'hechna yemananin, where, at what points did they wave the lulav? Now, we wave the lulav twice. We wave it when we do the mitzvah itself, when we take it for the mitzvah to do the mitzvah, and when we say halal, as we hold the lulav in esrog. So the question is here, during Hallel, at which points do we wave the Dalet Minim, the 4 species? Okay, now, I want to read here to you from the notes, which is some interesting, very interesting, important information here. Okay, the first thing is, what does it mean to wave? Okay, what does it mean to wave? Now, there may be different customs, but this is the way it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch. One waves the 4 species by extending them away from one's body and bringing them back. That's waving. Waving does not have to mean shaking it. Now, there are people who shake it while they do it, but the main point is not just you have to. It's basic. The point is to, like we say, it's extending it away from your body and then bringing it back, which means if you hold it in one place and just wave it, that doesn't sound like that. Okay. Now, this is done 3 times in each of 6 directions. There's different customs about this also. The Bar Tanura only mentions 4 directions, but our custom is 6 directions. This is done 3 times in each of 6 directions. That is 3 times in each direction of the compass. Okay, north, east, south, and west. 3 times up and 3 times down. Waving them in the direction of the compass shows that we are asking God to stop harmful winds that come from every direction. That's what waving the lulav in those directions is meant to do. Waving them up and down shows that we are asking God to stop harmful precipitation, which forms up in the sky and falls down to the ground. So the point of the waving of the lulav is that we should be saved from these difficult things. Although one fulfills his basic obligation as soon as he raises the 4 species, the proper way of performing the mitzvah is to wave them. So the essential mitzvah is take them. You're supposed to also wave them. The main requirement of waving applies when one initially takes the species in order to fulfill the mitzvah, and the requirement to wave them during Hallel is a rabbinic addition. Okay, so that's just some of the background here for what we call the Nanuim, the waving. Okay, now, where did they? At what points of Hallel did they wave the lulav? When we recite Haidul Hashem at the beginning and at the end. Where's the beginning and where's the end? The answer is we know there's a part. We could have said the middle and the end, right? There's a middle point. I call it a midpoint of sorts of Hallel, where we say Haidul Hashem ki tov ki la'olam chasdai. That would be Tchila. That's the first time. That's the first Haidul Hashem that we wave the lulav in esrog. V'seif, and then at the end, the second time when we say Haidul Hashem ki tov, which is at the end of Hallel, right before you Hallelujah. Uvana Hashem Hoshiana, and by when we say the words Ana Hashem Hoshiana. Divrei Beis Hillel. These are the words of Beis Hillel. This is what we do, right? This is what we do. When we say Haidul Hashem ki tov, this is when we wave the lulav esrog. Now, it's interesting that it calls it beginning and end, which would almost sound like, when you say Haidul Hashem at the beginning once, and Haidul Hashem at the end once, or when, just when you say it. We also do it when we respond to Haidul Hashem. Okay, now, Beis Shammai say, Av bana Hashem atzlichana. Beis Shammai say you wave it also by Ana Hashem atzlichana, which is not what we do. Rabbi Akiva said, Sefer Yisra Megamliel Rabbi Yeshua. I was watching Rabbi Yeshua during Halo. Everybody was waving their lulav, and they only waved only by Yana Hashem Mashiach. Which sounds like, again, I think there's a couple of ways of explaining this, but one to explain, meaning he saw that the only time they shook the lulav, they waved the lulav was Ana Hashem Mashiach. But everybody else was doing more. When was the more that they were doing it? What were they doing? So one way of learning would be that everybody, for some reason, was doing it by both Ana Hashem Mashiach and Ana Hashem Maslichana, and Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua only did it by Ana Hashem Mashiach. Next, Mi Shaba Baderech, somebody who had been traveling far distance. He didn't have a lulav to take. When he enters his house, he should take it even at his table. That means that even if in the middle of eating a meal, you should stop the meal and you should take a lulav and esrog. So he wasn't able to take lulav and esrog. In the beginning, he was traveling, was cholamayid, he was traveling, didn't have a lulav and esrog. Okay, so even though he didn't have the lulav and esrog in the beginning of the day, by davening, he still takes it. And when it says he takes it on his table, that means that if, let's say, he forgot to take, before he started eating, he forgot to take lulav and esrog, he should do it as soon as he remembers, even in the middle of the meal. Even in the middle of the meal. Okay? Now they bring that here, this law about interrupting a meal to take lulav and esrog, this law applies only where one does not have enough time to perform the mitzvah after the meal. One who has enough time to do both may delay the mitzvah until after the meal, because taking the fourth speech in Cholamayid is only rabbinic mitzvah, and the rule is that one need not interrupt a meal for a rabbinic mitzvah. Isn't that interesting? Meaning, if it's not the first day, or at least not the first, probably treat the second day like the first day. Mm-hmm. But if it's Cholamayid, where clearly the mitzvah of taking lulav and esrog is midrabanan. So the rule is you don't have to interrupt your meal for the Rabbanan unless you know time's going to run out because of that meal. On Yontif, however, when taking the lulav is a biblical obligation, one must stop eating as soon as he remembers, even if there is enough time to perform the mitzvah after the meal. On the Yontif, on the first day of Yontif, when it's a Torah obligation, take lulav and esrog, and for some reason you didn't do it in the beginning of the day, and you all of a sudden remember it in the middle of your meal, when it's a Torah obligation, take lulav and esrog, you have to interrupt your meal. Then the Mishnah concludes, Lo not al shachris, you didn't take it in the morning, Yital ben Arabayim, take it in the afternoon. Shkalayim kasher lulav, for the entire day is kasher for performing the mitzvah of taking the lulav esrog hadasim and arabas. Have a wonderful day.
Does that mean you have to say Hallel again?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Or just say
No.
bracha?
Just the bracha.